What's up, veterans, service members, transitioning service members? Thanks again for tuning into another episode of the Veterans Claim Servants Off the Battlefield podcast. I'm super stoked to be with you today. I'm going to be talking about 5 easy VA claims to win for your VA disability. Before we get going into today's episode, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment to this channel, hit that notification bell, and share this out with a fellow veteran or soon to be transitioning service member, that can use this information. And more importantly, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your service to our country today. I thank you and appreciate you. So today, I just want to get into 5 easy claims that you can win. Okay. And I want to go through them a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to, and I'm going to talk about that right now. There are 923 eligible conditions for VA disability. Okay. All right. But again, I want to give you 5 that if you're listening, you may not need any medical records for. Okay. It's subjective, some of these, and it's really going to come down to your articulation. And also, again, always your personal statement as well, too, and your job rate, MOS, and things like that. So I want to get into the first one. Okay. Number one, right, is tinnitus. Okay. Number one is tinnitus. What is tinnitus? It is ringing in the ear. Okay. It's under diagnostic code 6260. As high of a rating as it can go is 10%. It cannot go any higher, but it's tinnitus. But you have to ask yourself, was I around low noise exposure, mid noise exposure, or high noise exposure? So high noise exposure would be if you were on aircraft or the flight line or, a mortarman or something of that nature. What loud noises were you around that cause your tinnitus? Remember, tinnitus is the ringing in the ear syndrome, right? It is the most common VA disability. It includes ringing, hissing, buzzing, or other noises in one or both ears without an external sound source. Okay. Now, look, for tinnitus, you got to know that it's different than hearing loss. Tinnitus, there's no test for it. It's subjective, right? It's subjective and it's based off of your articulation. So you need to, in your personal statement, hey, I am requesting service connection for tinnitus. Okay. For the following condition, for tinnitus. What happened to cause that tinnitus and when did it occur? You don't need to pinpoint yourself. Okay, it's 2024 now. Let's say you served from 2014 to 2017. The question that you need to ask yourself is, when did my tinnitus begin on active duty? Okay. So first off, what was my job? I was an infantryman, right? Okay. Did it happen in 2000 and when did it occur in 2014 to 17 that this ringing in my ears started to occur? Because this needs to go into your personal statement, right? And you need to state, hey, and if it, let's call it 2015, I was out on the range, my earplug fell out, and it has my ears, both of them, right, bilaterally have not stopped ringing since that time. You need to be specific on that. Now, again, I may not know that it was May 1st, 2015. So in general, I'm just going to say, hey, 2015, I got ringing in the ears. This is when it started. And in addition, I was around loud noises and motors and engines. I could not wear my ear protection properly all the time. And I've had this ringing in my ears that's just continued to get worse. It is subjective. It is based off of your story, right? And some people get it in one ear, more severe than the other, or some get it bilaterally. It's important that you let them know, hey, I was in from this time to this time. We're calling it 2014 to 17, 2015. This is when it occurred. And by the way, again, this was my job. I was around loud noises all the time. I was around generators, motors, loud noises, guns, mortar rounds, whatever you were around. You need to let that be known. You need to let them know clearly what you're asking for, when it began, what your job was. And you can look, there's many lists out there of high noise exposure, mid noise exposure, low noise exposure. And a lot of that, look, an admin job, if it's Army, for my sake, 42 Alpha, that's not a high noise exposure job. But if you're on a flight line or infantry or mortarmen or Bradleys and tanks, that's high noise exposure. Now, again, you don't need any medical records for this at all. All you need is your DD 214. So if you're waiting on medical records right now and you hear this, file that claim. If you're having ringing in your ears, file it, right? If you worked on a flight line without proper hearing protection, file that claim, okay? So that is number one. Number one is tinnitus. That's a little bit about tinnitus and what it is, the ringing in the ear syndrome. It is pretty much the most common VA disability. We need to see if they're going to keep that within the 38 CFR or not. Okay. Number two on my list is hearing loss. Okay. Again, you do not need medical records. It does help if there's, if it's noted in your STR, your active file or your C file that you did have some hearing loss and complaints. But hearing loss, remember, this is going to be a hearing test, okay? Unlike tinnitus, this is going to be a hearing test. You're going to have to take an audiology exam, and it's going to depend on your test and the auditory threshold and the numbers. So common in veterans, hearing loss is due to aging and chronic noise exposure. So again, you need to state, this was my job while I was in, this was my rate. I was around loud noises. I've had hearing loss. Now, again, you're going to get a hearing exam. And if you don't meet the auditory threshold or those numbers, then you're not going to get that hearing loss. Okay. So you need to understand that. But if you've been out of the military for over a year, hearing loss is difficult to service connect above 0%, right? If you need to, I would recommend you can get a medical nexus letter to improve your odds. If you do need a medical nexus letter for that, then you can hit me up, info@ veteransclaimservice.com, and we'll be happy to point you to and give you the email to a doctor that can help you with that as well, as long as the evidence matches. But again, your rating on that hearing loss is dependent on the severity of your hearing loss. Okay. How bad is your hearing loss? Are you wearing hearing aids or not? But remember, hearing loss is separate from tinnitus. It's going to be based off of, it's going to be objective, not subjective. It's going to be factual. You're going to have to take a hearing exam. So tinnitus is number one, hearing loss is number two. Okay. I just want you to know that. Number three is scars. If something has happened while you were in the service, resulting from maybe an accident or burn, I don't know, acne, an illness, anything of that nature, scars are pretty easy. You just need to show the scar, right? You should, with your claim, you should submit and upload pictures of your scars. If you're filing online, make sure that you upload it to va.gov, right, to provide visual evidence for the compensation and pension examiner and the VA rater, right, and make sure you are clear on how it occurred. Okay, I had a surgery while I was in. I had an injury while I was in. This got hurt, and I've got this scar. I fell down. I hit my head. I've got this scar. Make sure that you submit pictures with that. So scars are number three, and they rate generally from 0 to 80%, depending on some factors. Are they painful to the touch? Are they unstable? Are they oozing out, pus and things like that? Or is it just visible, but does not hurt you when it's touched? It's not painful and unstable. So again, just like every other VA claim, the severity of the scar, the pain of the scar, and all of that is going to depend on the rating of the scar. Okay. But that can absolutely affect appearance and all of that stuff. So that plays a factor into the rating on your scars. Okay. But you can get rated from 0 to 80%. Okay, so number one, tinnitus. Number two, hearing loss. Number three, scars. Number four, I'm going to get into limitation of flexion in the knee. Okay, limitation of flexion in the knee. Now, remember, how did your knee injury occur? Do you have in-service treatment, stressor, diagnosis, medical evidence? Like, what happened while you're in? Is it in your active duty medical records? And was it diagnosed? What happened to you? Okay, so knee pain can be from many different things. It could be from rucking. It could be from physical activity, training. It could be from arthritis. It could be from gout, infection. It's very, very common among veterans. Okay. But make sure it's in your C file. Make sure that you can pinpoint what happened. I was rucking and I hurt my knees, right? You need to have those complaints in there. If not, how are you going to establish service connection? Okay, if you cannot show the rater where this injury occurred and how it is service connected. The rating for this is typically 0 to 30% based off of what? It's based off of range of motion. So many people say, I'm in pain. I'm in a lot of pain. Okay, I get that you're in pain, but you're not really going to get 30% rating just because you're in pain. You're to max out that rating, it's going to depend on the flexion or the flexibility of your knees, left or right knees. It's going to depend on that. If you have pain upon flexion or extension of your knee, the VA must award the minimum compensable rating for the condition, right? Which is 10%. If it's a little bit more and you're having issues walking and on a cane and things like that, then you can get a little bit of a higher rating. So it's a combination of pain and really depends on the flexibility or the flexion of how bad your knee pain is. So number 4, easiest thing to claim is limitation of flexion in knee. But again, make sure that you have the medical evidence for that. But if you do, you can get that now. Let me say this too. If you have jumped out of planes, um, airborne, parachute badge, those type of things, make sure that you articulate that, and you don't need medical records. You can point back to your MOS, right? I recommend up-to-date medical records. If you've been out, make sure that you've been seen for that knee, up to date and current, right? Even if it's with a civilian doctor. But if you made jumps and you have 20 jumps under your belt and a parachute badge, make sure that you point that rater back to that parachute badge. You got to explain this stuff in your personal statement that, hey, I had a parachute badge. I was at Fort Bragg. I jumped out of airplanes and I had 20 plus jumps underneath my belt and my knees are killing me. They've been killing me since that time. I sucked it up and I dealt with it. And here's my up-to-date diagnosis on my left knee limitation of flexion or patellofemoral, whatever you've got going on, you need to explain that. Okay. But again, number 4 is limitation of flexion in knee. Always, 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 as much evidence as you can provide that. I highly recommend having service connected evidence so that you can always establish service connection and not just assume that you're going to get it. But again, if you have an MOS, and I'm just using if you jumped out of planes and you're airborne and all that jazz, then you need to, if you're aerosol or something of that nature, then you can point back to that MOS and just make sure you write that on your 214138, or if it's too long on a separate sheet of paper, make sure that you write in your statement that I jumped out of planes, I have a parachute badge, I was aerosol, these things happened and messed up and I just sucked it up and I dealt with it, but this occurred while I was in the service. Okay. Number 5 is going to be back, lumbosacral, or cervical strain in the neck as well too. So common neck pain often resulting from poor posture, carrying heavy items, or deployments, right? But again, make sure it's in your active duty records. Do you have, or in your records, if you're guard or reserve, do you have an LOD? Do you have a line of duty? Make sure it's there and make sure you can clearly show how this happened, how this occurred. That is your beginning puzzle piece, as I call it. So what happened while you're in? Do you have in-service treatment, stress, or diagnosis? Right? Common neck pain often resulting from poor posture can lead to cervical strain, carrying heavy items because of our jobs, rucksacks, all those things can be seen, or can cause that lumbosacral strain, that lower back pain. Deployments can, carrying guns, weapons, all that is involved in deployments. But if you're active duty and listening to this, and you have any pain, go get seen for it. You need to go get seen. The biggest problem that veterans have once they get out is you can't go back. You can't go back in time. You can't go back and get seen. Veterans, you are your best advocate. You need to get the evidence that you need to get. And the only way that you can do it is not sucking it up and dealing with it, but going and getting the treatment that you need to go get for this. Okay. So if you have any back or neck issues, go get seen for it. Go get this thing written down and recorded in your active duty records or your guard records, reserve record. Make sure it's there showing your time in guard, reserves, or whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, whatever branch you're in. Make sure that that stuff is duly noted. Okay. Back pain, cervical strain can rate from 10 to 100, always depending on the severity of it. right? If you have pain upon flexion or extension of your neck, the VA must award the minimum compensable rating for the condition, which is 10%. Same thing with lumbosacral strain. It's generally 10 to 20% or 0 to 20%. There is not too many at 40 or 60 because like the spine's going to have to be frozen. It's going to have to be pretty bad, and you're going to have to be looking like the Hunchback of Notre Dame to be getting a 60% rating. I have not heard of too many people with that. Seen and heard about people with 40% ratings, but generally it's typically 10 to 20%. And remember, it's a combination in your neck and your back. Okay, this is our number 5 conditions here. Okay, it's kind of 2 and 1 here for the number 5 conditions, but that lumbosacral strain or that neck strain is dependent on your flexibility, your flexion, your range of motion in combination with the pain. But remember, you're not getting 20% for pain, because if you go on 38 CFR and you look at how they rate for back or neck, it's going to depend on range of motion. Okay, so again, let me recap. Tinnitus, okay, hearing loss number 2, scars number 3, limitation of flexion knee 4, and number 5, lumbosacral strain, back pain, cervical strain. Okay, so your neck. Those are the top 5 easiest claims that you, my friends, you, the veteran, can win. Remember, tinnitus, hearing loss, and things like that, it does not need to be in your medical records. Again, tinnitus is subjective. Hearing loss is going to depend on how your hearing results and how your hearing exam turns out as well. Scars, you need to be able to upload a picture, show the scar on your body, upload that to va.gov when you're submitting your claim, or however you're submitting your claim, right? And if it's back and knee pain, absolutely make sure it's in your medical records, unless you have a job that, parachute, air assault, something of that nature, where you can show that I jumped out of planes and did this and it messed up my doggone knees and my back and stuff like that. So make sure that you understand that, know the difference between that, and always, always, always make sure that you have the evidence. In veterans, you are your best advocate. So those are the top 5 easiest claims to win right now in 2024. Again, I hope that this helps you. I hope that it sheds some light on some things that maybe you did not know about that you could claim. I hope that you get a lot out of this channel. I hope that you, the veteran, know that you matter, that you deserve everything that you can get for your service and selfless sacrifice to this country. So again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure, my friends, that you like, subscribe, comment to this channel, share this out, hit the notification bell, stay in the know as we continue to pour out education and resources and help to help you be in the best position that you can be in. And if you need Nexus letter or anything like that, in the description of this video, you'll see Dr. Sharma, Dr. Lopez's information. You can reach out to me for musculoskeletal doctors, Dr. Patel, quality Nexus letters. There's some great doctors and Nexus letter writers so that you don't get screwed over. They will not write your Nexus letter or anything like that if they cannot help you, which is good. You don't want to just pay somebody $1,500 and they ain't helping you. They don't know what they're doing. They're just taking money from you. Don't get screwed over. Reach out if you're just stuck and don't know who to call and you're Googling all these providers. Okay. And there's other channels out here that can help you with that as well too. So it's awesome. Thank you for your time today. And those are the top 5 easy claims to win your VA disability claim that are pretty easy in 2024.